NATO will not provoke Russia because NATO is a strong organization that has the right power to help not provoke Russia. And won't NATO intervention, if NATO does not intervene, won't it start a nuclear war?
No, in fact, if NATO does intervene, it will. If NATO does intervene, it will start a nuclear war because NATO, Russia, and the United States are all nuclear powers. And according to the Wall Street Journal, the sanctions have been working. What do you have to say about this?
Sanctions have not been working because if they had been working, then Russia would have pulled back its troops a long time ago.
Isn't NATO a weak organization since U.S. and a few other...
NATO is not a weak organization because it's...
Then how come U.S. is the only one supporting NATO?
Well, U.S. is the only one that's supporting NATO because it's taken the initiative to help spend money and support NATO. If Putin doesn't like Ukraine, won't he monopolize gas throughout the EU?
No, because the sanctions have been working. He knows if he stops gas exports, it will hurt him more because of that.
Won't a NATO intervention be needed to stop Putin so Putin will not monopolize gas throughout the EU?
No, NATO wouldn't be needed because Putin knows that the sanctions are working. And President Poroshenko has stated that he doesn't want to be part of NATO. He wants military aid from the U.S. What do you have to say about this?
If he so-called stated that he doesn't want...
this is the president of Ukraine, by the way.
Okay. If he stated that he doesn't want direct U.S. help, then in a meeting with in France, he specifically stated that he didn't want NATO and U.S. intervention to help stop the problems in Ukraine.
You just said he didn't want NATO.
He did. I said he did want NATO and U.S. intervention to help stop the problems in Ukraine.
But according to an interview on June 10th, he says he doesn't want NATO intervention. And hasn't Putin backed off and removed 3/4 of the army?
No, he hasn't, because there's still many insurgents that are still in Ukraine.
Putin seems to have been liking the President Poroshenko. So
Putin, can you repeat your question?
Putin has seemed to like the President Poroshenko.
If he seemed to like President Poroshenko, then why hasn't he withdrawn all of his troops? He only withdrew few of them. He still hasn't withdrawn troops that are on the border of Ukraine.
3/4 is more than a few.
Then why are there still tanks going through the streets of...
Okay, so you have to remember that if he doesn't let you ask questions, he keeps asking, you can say, well, can I ask questions? It's my turn. Because you cannot let the other team ask 4 questions in a row and not letting you ask any questions. You don't let the other team overpower you. Okay, second speaker. Sri.
Can I start? Can I start? Okay. So, first off, to review our opponent's first contention, the rebels in Ukraine are fighting in Ukraine because Ukraine is fleeing help from other organizations. They do not like this, and they will not like it even more if Ukraine builds an alliance with NATO. Also, the rebels that used to be in Putin's control are no longer in Putin's control. And so Putin and Russia cannot control these rebels. So even if NATO does find a diplomatic solution with Russia, they cannot stop these rebels. And to review our opponent's second contention, Russia can cut all oil, 50% of oil at Ukraine at whatever time they want because they own 50% of the oil that's going to Ukraine. And Russia already has plenty of money, so what is stopping them from cutting oil and burning them? Lastly, refuting our opponent's third contention, if Russia is still involved, why have they already brought back 3/4 of their military from the border? As far as I know, if you only have 1/4 of your military on the border of a country, you are in no form to fight a war against them. I mean, if you have 1/4 of your military on a country's border, you are not involved in the country. If NATO involvement in Ukraine will provoke Russia and cause a full-scale war. NATO cannot handle that. First off, NATO is a weak alliance and will be weakened by war, according to Greenwich co-host of CNN's Crossfire, April 23rd, 2014. In Russia, we are dealing with the largest country in the world geographically, with thousands of nuclear weapons. And so far, Europe has to rely completely on the U.S. for military protection and freedom. If NATO is trying to help on one of these countries, without only the U.S. in its military and more powerful countries, how is Putin going to allow this to happen? And
With you
without
and you, you're
with further notice and some military in Ukraine, Putin shall act war into Ukraine with nothing stopping him. Because
Yes, but he's a politician. So he's
do
not-
any help in this case, it can only make the situation work and provoke Russia. One of the reasons NATO will provoke Russia is that NATO is U.S.-led, military-wise and power-wise. And over the past years, Russia and the U.S. now have the best relationship. Second off, NATO was built to oppose Russia and the Soviet Union, and Putin will definitely not like this. This is according to the CNN.
Kind of balance, but he's a
Okay, and building on my point on the second contention of tools to war, NATO would drop all full cooperations Russia has had with Ukraine and maybe even Europe. Russia is responsible for more than 50% of Europe's oil reserve. Without this oil, Europe would suffer transportation problems, according to the CNN. Stronger alliance with Ukraine, as for it will not deter further Russian aggressions and might provoke more Russian aggression. That's it.
Okay. Do you need time or no?